So that's where, yes. So we want our readers to understand through people like you, CEOs of large companies in the logistics world, what are the trends, what's disrupting their business, their industry, and what they can foresee will happen, with drones and driverless trucks. So data, let's start with data analytics and artificial intelligence.
And do you want me to make it more eco-centric or more industry-centric?
Industry-centric.
Okay.
You can refer to echo, what you do in
Sure.
to support it, but then, industry.
Sure. Okay. Well, if I go back about 5 years ago at Echo, I was observing what Amazon was doing with data and Google and all the kind of e-commerce companies and how they were mining data and Netflix is a great example. They know what you want to watch next. And I started envisioning how much data we have about our customers, about our carriers, about market data, pricing data, and realized that we really didn't put our data to work. And so, and I would say that most of the analysts that we had, they either worked in finance and accounting where they did accounting, or maybe they worked in a department where they did spreadsheets, and but we didn't really have mathematicians, for instance. So we got to thinking, let's put our data to work. So we went out and we hired a person that had a background. Frankly, they were from Best Buy, and they were head of business insights, and talking to them about the kind of things that were going on in retail that really hadn't come to the transportation sector yet. And so I hired this gentleman and I said, okay, for the first 2 months, all I want you to do is walk around and talk to people. And I want you to observe, what's there that you could play with, learn our business, and come back to me in 2 months and tell me how you think data science can make us better.
Right.
And so he did that, and he came back in 2 months, and he had a list of 26 items, and had them in a typical, Gartner magic quadrant, and said, these are quick and easy, and these are slow and hard, and these have the most value, and these have the least value, and so here we are 5 years later, and I think out of those 26, we've tackled 3 or 4 of them. So it's a target-rich environment.
Right.
Some of the early things, and the terms AI and machine learning, those have become buzzwords to an extent, because I think analytics is much broader than that. Analytics can be, regression analysis that you learned in your college statistics class. There's lots of techniques. AI and machine learning are a couple of them. And also the definitions of those start to become nebulous depending on who you talk to. So I like to think of, I call it data science. That's a buzzword too, but it's when everybody understands what you're talking about. I think these terms get overused, especially by the hundreds of consultants that email me every week wanting to sell me a solution for AI and machine learning. It's like it's gone.
The thing is that all these words are getting so complex. Like people don't understand what blockchain is. A lot of people don't even know what artificial intelligence is. To what extent artificial intelligence can impact lives and 5G technology. So you got to keep it simple, otherwise.
Right, and then if you really want to get in the weeds, I'll talk to my senior vice president of strategic analytics. That's his title, and say, how did you solve this problem? And he'll say, well, I used a Bayesian hierarchical algorithm. And I go, okay. Is that AI? He goes, nope. I said, is that machine learning? He goes, nope.
Right.
He goes, but it works.
Well, as long as it works, keep doing it.
But I think that is one of the points that technology is moving so fast that it's too fast for the normal human being, right? And we have to catch up with it. And there's so many things in the
Well, it's interesting, your point, because I actually write code.
You do.
I do.
You're an economics major.
Yeah, I was an econ major.
But you
and as a hobby, I've always stayed up with technology, and I have some little side projects that I've done where I literally write all the code.
Okay.
And yet, when I go talk to my IT people, they go layers so much deeper than what I know what they're talking about,
Yeah.
but it's like medicine, right? If you can go to your general practitioner and get a physical and then take your blood pressure and your blood tests and tell you look pretty healthy, but when you've got that really bad stomach pain, they send you to a specialist, right? Or when you break a bone, well, there's hand orthopedic surgeons and there's guys that specialize on your knees, and so technology is the same way. In that there's so many specialties and subspecialties, and in today's world, you kind of have to pull all those together if you want an industrial strength solution.
Yeah, I kind of tell people that it's kind of like Excel. You know, when I went to college and I was using Excel, I probably used 1% of what Excel really did. You know, and you know about it. And so that's how I see technology, that we don't know the full extent of all the things that we have, right?
Right. So when you come to analytics, it's kind of the same thing. There are so many mathematical techniques and statistical techniques, and and AI is overused, and AI can be a lot of things, right? Voice recognition is AI,
right?
But what we're finding a lot of value in doing things like price discovery. So where we are doing brokerage, think about it. There's 40,000 zip codes in the United States. So if you square that number. If you want to define a lane as an origin-destination pair, there's 1.6 billion possible lanes. And so on any given shipment, a customer could say, hey, what's your price between this point and that point? In certain transportation modes like truckload, that price varies every day. The price from LA to Chicago will vary by time of year. It'll vary by time of month. It'll vary by day of week. It even varies by time of day. It also varies depending on how much lead time we get. So we're in this very fluid market of arbitrage where we want to buy at a price and sell at a higher price, and and if we do that wrong, we lose money, right? If I tell you that it's going to cost you $3,000 for that truckload from LA to Chicago, but I can't find a truck for $3,000. The cheapest one's $3,200. I lose $200 on that load.
So how do you prevent that with predictive analytics?
So we have enough of our own internal data that we were able to create algorithms that basically do a 30-day look back. And in all those lanes that I described, we can either know the price that we've paid, or using a graph database, which is similar to how Facebook connects everything up, we can interpolate what the price ought to be. And if we don't have enough data, then our algorithm pulls in external third-party data to supplement our own data. We always think our own data is the best because that represents what we can actually do. But in 1.6 billion lanes, there's going to be some lanes where you don't have much data.
So what can disrupt that the most? For example, climate change, not climate change, but weather, seasons, trade announcements.
Well, that's a great point. So that's pricing moves that all around, and so you try to have parameters and variables that can account for that. But those are some of the kind of the real-time events that affect what we do. So I'll give you a kind of a different example outside of pricing. Tracking your shipment. Historically, transportation companies would say, oh, LA to Chicago, that's 3 days. With a two-person sleeper team. It's 4 days if you have a single driver because they got to stop and sleep, right? That's not very exact, because if you're shipping to Home Depot or Staples, you got to make an appointment, and your appointment's for 2 o'clock on Thursday, and if you're not there at 2 o'clock on Thursday, the shipper's going to get a fine. So as the demands of business increase, the requirements on the participants keep increasing, and our industry was pretty archaic. We'd say, well, that's a 4-day transit time. Sometimes it gets there in 5. Sometimes you're lucky it gets there in 3. If it goes over the weekend, we kind of get an extra day for free. If there's bad weather, oh well. So one of the things that we and others are working on is the ability to use data. Don't just use, whatever your standard time is that you sell, because it varies. let's actually predict it, and let's predict it en route, and let's predict it as it changes. From a customer service standpoint in our industry, and I've spent my entire career surveying customers, one of the biggest frustrations they have with transportation companies is we don't communicate very well, and we don't do customer service very well. I'm saying we as an industry.
Right.
So, for instance, shipper A gives a trucking company a shipment going to customer B. And the customer needs it by Friday because they have an installation crew there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get there on Friday. Now they're upset, and the shipper, the supplier to that customer, would have done something differently because they knew it was an important shipment.
Right.
Had they known it wasn't going to get there. But what happens is they give it to the trucking company puts it into their network, and it delivers when it delivers. The shipper who generated the transaction actually hears that it was late from his customer. And so what I've heard from the industry for years is that shippers want proactive customer service. In other words, if I give you this shipment on Monday and you tell me it's going to deliver on Friday, great. But if it's not going to happen, tell me as soon as you know that.
Of course.
So I can intervene if I need to. Maybe I'll air freight a shipment instead to satisfy my customer. And trucking companies were so archaic in their thinking that they just didn't act that way.
Yeah.
And if it was late, it was late. And they would be happy if they had 90% on-time service. And most of the time it was closer to 70 or 80. And when customers would complain about it, they say, oh, well. So what we and others are doing now is working with predictive algorithms that say, okay, you picked up the shipment. It's going 2,000 miles. We know a truck can go 500 miles a day. But it's more complicated than that because that truck's going to be on I-80 in Cleveland at rush hour.
Right.
So that's going to delay them by an hour and a half.
Right.
And we also know that there's a big thunderstorm coming through. That's going to slow down traffic.
Or if you're in Mexico, that there's going to be a roadblock by some campesinos and farmers that don't want you to go through their town.
Exactly.
Or something like that.
Or in Mexico, they get off the toll road because they don't want to pay the toll, and they drive on an 80-year-old road that's not paved.
Right. It's complex. I mean,
so the world's moving towards, okay, it's great that you can go 500 miles a day.
Right.
I want to know exactly what time the truck's going to arrive.
Yeah.
Because that's how business operates today.
And then you have a certain margin of error, and you play with that. I mean, you have to.
Yeah, but if it's continuously updating,
right?
It's just like if you use Waze in your car, right?
Okay. Every lifetime.
Yeah.
Update. Let me ask you a question. How is blockchain creating transparency going to play a role in this? Is it playing a role today?
You may not.
Is it a buzzword?
It's a buzzword. I know a lot about blockchain. I'm a crypto miner.
You're a miner?
Yeah.
Can you take 30 seconds?
We're going to have to do another article just on that so you can explain.
Just on you.
I'm not going to mention names, but CEOs have actually said, please do an article about blockchain because I don't understand it.
It's funny because I'm in the Northwestern University, they call the Business Advisory Council for Transportation. And they did a segment on cryptocurrency. Okay. And it was like a 3-person panel, and they asked me to go up and explain how it all works. So I put some thought into it, and I put together a PowerPoint presentation, and I described all the cryptography and the mining and how, like, what information is contained in a block on a blockchain and why, why do you not need a third-party verification and how it all works. Yeah. And in the room, I had Northwestern computer science PhDs. I had students. Nobody
didn't get it.
I mean, no. They got it after I explained it. But my point was...
they were there to learn.
My point was, we're in the Wild West with cryptocurrency. Yeah. And 99.9% of the people don't get it, including these computer science PhDs at Northwestern.
Wow.
So we want to do an infographics page, basically stupid proof, explaining blockchain
for dummies.
I mean, literally, because editorially, people have talked about it in articles, but there's nothing like actually seeing visually through infographics to understand something.
Well, sometime you'll have to let me give you my 30-minute presentation.
Please share it.
Please,
because we can set up another meeting.
I give you enough technical information so that you kind of go, oh, I see how it works, but I don't make it overly complex.
Okay, that's completely different, and we'll set it up. Let's do that.
So
let's not address this now. Let's go back to
So
blockchain transparency.
Yeah.
You mentioned it's a buzzword.
Well, so here's the thing. Blockchain is really just another type of a database,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's a database that can be made public, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can see the transaction in the database, and nobody can change those transactions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know that I want to put my data in a public database
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want my competitors to see my transactions or my pricing, and they don't care how quickly I paid my bill, or it's like it's a solution in search of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I do see starting to emerge is private blockchains. Maybe Walmart wants to create a supply chain management system that utilizes blockchain as the storage mechanism and the archive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think IBM is doing a lot of work to create these private blockchains. I think those could be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I actually looked at a tech startup recently that has a solution like that.
Yeah.
So the solution would be for a company that wants to take a hold of all their supply chain activities and have all the participants, whether they're vendors or transportation companies or warehouses, contribute their data to this blockchain, however they contribute it. They might send it in via EDI, they might use a portal, and so they have a vision and a tool, and people are using it to use the blockchain. But I would say that it's more of a company-specific solution. So if Walmart decided they wanted to do that, guess what? All their vendors would do it.
Yeah.
But I don't see a ubiquitous solution that becomes the fabric of supply chain, because I don't think you're going to get everybody to buy into it, and we don't really need it. We have mechanisms in place today that work just fine.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to get shipment location from an LTL carrier, I don't need them to put it on a blockchain. I already have an API connection into their mainframe.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they're an old-fashioned carrier, I've got EDI connections with them. So I don't get any real value by putting that on a blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
So I think blockchain is another one of those fads.
Mm-hmm.
There's too many consultants in the world that don't publish that.
Yeah.
That are looking for the next thing to sell you.
Yeah. Just by having the word blockchain,
they charge twice as much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you don't understand what they're charging you for.
That's the funny part. People like if you understand what it really is, then you kind of go, yeah, okay, that's kind of cool. Why do we need it?
Yeah. So, going back to...
But I think it will be a company-specific solution that some big companies will...
IBM is doing it. And
that's because they want to sell a bunch of it. But,
yeah, they want to sell it, of course.
There will be companies that will impose it on their suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's really needed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And, of course, the first thing they tell you in media training is, if you're going to be on live TV, make sure you check the headlines that day, because they might ask you about something that you weren't planning on, and you don't want to look stupid, right? So I'm going over to the Fox studio downtown, and I'm thinking, okay, everybody's talking about oil. We don't really think about oil because it's a pass-through, but I better be smart about oil. So I pulled up the trend of oil prices from the Department of Energy and saw where it was at, and read a couple of quick articles. And so I jump in a taxi and I go over there, and he's got like 5 things he wants to talk about Echo, right?
Yeah.
So I get on, the little red light comes on, and he goes, oil's going crazy. He goes, tell me, where's the price of oil going? And I go, well, Stuart, that's a little bit above my pay grade. I'm just a transportation guy. And he goes, oh, come on, Doug. He says, you got to have a view.
I'm not the Saudi oil minister, right?
And so, honest to God, I don't even know why I said this. I go, well, Stuart, I said, I think it's going to $100 a barrel. And he goes, $100 a barrel? He goes, my goodness. And so anyway, we gone on the rest of the interview, right? That day, it shot from $80 to $100 a barrel.
So
his producers wouldn't stop calling me. Well, can we get you back on the show? Can we get? And I go, no. I don't.
That was the guess.
You either moved the market.
I just pulled that out of my ass.
That's unbelievable.
Well, I mean, I did look at the trend line, and I looked at the volatility, and I thought, I'm just going to be outrageous. So I said $100 a barrel.
And then went to 147.
We only
A
have
couple days later.
5 more minutes,
Yeah.
so I will not.
Oh, sorry, I wasted a bunch of
No,
time
no, no,
here.
no, no. Actually, I wish we could have a lot more time. But what's gonna disrupt your industry? What are the major challenges, and how do corporations have to get ready to the new logistics world?
This may be a weird answer, but one of the things that's disrupting to our industry is venture capital.
Venture, how?
Because there's so much money out there.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing a lot of tech startups
Mm-hmm.
that frankly know nothing about our industry,
Mm-hmm.
but they're good at building technology, trying to get into our industry.
Okay.
Right now they make a lot of noise, and it causes us to be on our best game, and it causes us to step up our investment and never lose sight of our technology goals.
Yeah.
But there's just lots of new entrants into the space.
Okay.
You know, the barriers of entry are fairly low, and so you've got a lot of new entrants that are well funded at crazy valuations, you know, trying to break into our space. And some of them are willing to lose money for a long, long time. And, you know, so that's disruptive. When it comes to the technology and data science, I think it's more evolution than it is disruption. And I like to think that we're leading that. But, you know, there is increased competition from a lot of the tech startups who see what a big space this is. You know, if you consider supply chain is probably 10% of GDP, and it's very, very, very fragmented, and it's businesses conducted, like I said, in many cases in a very old-fashioned way, you know, on a whiteboard or on a telephone.
Yeah.
There's lots of opportunity to automate and execute. The problem is, you know, a tech company can come up with a wonderful solution, but they're never going to get ubiquitous adoption of that because it's so fragmented. So I think that the industry will evolve. I think it's evolving now faster than it ever has because everybody is becoming more aware of technology. People are becoming more aware of analytics. And frankly, because you have more young people advancing in their companies and they want to adopt technology. You know, I talk about the trucking company that's got 6 truck drivers, and the guy that's been the guy that's owned it for 30 years doesn't want technology. But his son, who just got his MBA at Northwestern, who's going to inherit the business, he does, you know, and or his daughter, and so these companies that used to be very old school are rapidly starting to ramp up on their technology. So it is accelerating the rate of change, but you still have massive fragmentation. So a lot of people look at our industry and say, why? With all these transactions that occur every day, why is it not like the stock market? You know, the stock market used to have stockbrokers. Who were on the phone and they were placing orders to their traders, and that's all become automated. It's all electronic. But the difference is, stock market has 6 clearing firms. You know, the transportation industry has thousands of brokers and trucking companies, and you can't get